Raptors win, Raptors win, Raptors win. Oren Weisfeld, game 81 with basically nothing on the line. The Toronto Raptors eke one out against the basement of basements of basement dwelling Houston Rockets, 117-115, which is fucking gross because I had the Raptors at 2.5. So that hurts. But hey, what can you do? I took that when they were down 12. So,
Nice.
yeah. So I don't know. We're going to talk about the Houston Rockets for about like 5-10 minutes or the game, and then probably move on to the more exciting stuff that's at hand. Do you have any insights on this game, Oren, that you would like to share for the viewers?
Before we get to it, I'm curious because in Ontario right now, like I feel like everywhere I go, I'm seeing betting advertisements for like every new company that just opened their books in Ontario. Is that happening in BC?
No, I don't feel like people gamble in BC unless you're playing like
People gamble in everywhere, dude.
Baccarat or something in the alleys.
You know, it's a funny story. When I got to Victoria this summer, like I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew that like it was really hot. So I went in like the first bar I saw with AC, and it was just the most degenerate. Like, you know, those bars where people play like,
Keno or something?
yeah, like on the TV, they're playing
Yeah.
like with bingo or some sort of thing. It was just a bunch of that.
What
And I was
bar
like,
was it?
oh no, I don't know. It was just a side gross bar. And I was like, love being on vacation.
There's something comforting about those places.
Yeah,
You
for
just know
sure.
not to get beer on tap there. That's all.
True. Yeah, I didn't. In terms of this game, I think just the Raptors are kind of crazy for doing this one. Like y'all wild for this one.
Okay,
Like, why did
what's your logic
Siakam
for that?
play? I didn't
What
think anyone. I didn't think like Siakam and Gary were gonna play on the second night of a back-to-back.
I spent half the game trying to figure it out. Do you have a theory?
No, because like someone even asked Nurse the other day, is there a difference between 5 and 6, like getting the 5 seed and the 6 seed? And he was like, I've been trying to think of one, and no, I can't think of one. So I don't know why they like rhythm would be the reason. Keep these guys in rhythm because you have a week off for the playoffs. But I just expected they'll get a break tonight and then play against the Knicks and then take the like week off. But no, I
Okay,
don't know
so
that.
here's my theory. I think the rhythm. I think they want to take the. I think they want to play them one more game and sit them against the Knicks and then let them kind of rest. But I also think they decided we're gonna hold like as much leverage as we can, which is if Philly loses again, then and Toronto wins out and Philly loses out, which could happen. I mean, if they want to rest Harden and Embiid, which who need the rest more than our players do, frankly, there's a scenario where we sneak into fourth. And so like,
Yeah.
why
Oh,
not?
I see. I
So
see. Yeah, that makes
I think
sense.
they're gonna wait and see what happens with the Philly game, and then if Philly wins, like okay, whatever, we'll just sit everybody. But for now, let's see if we can
I
we
think that's a
can.
very astute point
Thank
you're
you. And then
making.
to your point with the fifth and sixth, I think there is a big deal because I think realistically Milwaukee's going to be second or third. You
Yep.
don't want to fall into this. So the second, third is probably going to be Boston, Milwaukee. Boston's probably going to play Brooklyn. So then that means in one bracket you have Brooklyn, Milwaukee, and Boston, and in the other bracket you have Philly, easy peasy, and then you have Miami versus probably Atlanta. Like that's a way easier bracket in my opinion. So you want to get that fifth seed for show.
Yeah, I mean, you can't think beyond the first round, I don't think, but you definitely want to play Philly in the first round.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about that. Like, we
Yeah.
should just talk about the Philly game after this because neither of us did the wrap up last night, right?
Yeah.
So that was a much more interesting game. But okay, in terms of this game, if we want to talk about it, what is there to talk about?
Okay. I'll start.
Yeah.
Like Utah finally gets a fourth quarter, and so they had a lineup of Scotty, Pascal, Utah, Cam, and Thad, which I think is probably their biggest lineup. Like if like structurally anyway. And I mean they prompted the comeback for the most part until Gary came in and got hot. And I just think once again, Utah validates his existence on this team. And it just It befuddles me every goddamn game that he doesn't get the minutes he deserves. That's real
Yeah,
stuff.
but it's too late. Like, it's too late to make a case now to
I
play
know.
in the
I'm just saying.
playoffs.
Just saying. He just really proved it tonight.
Yeah, I thought Thad was really good. He's kind of been getting better and better, I think, as a Raptor as the season's gone on, and I'm pretty confident in him as like that eighth man for them going into the playoffs. Like, especially if you think Birch maybe drops out of the rotation, I'm pretty confident in Thad getting these type of minutes. He was really good tonight. Gary was really good as well. Like that last bucket, I don't know if we have the clip of it, but that was a really impressive one.
He's been hot again.
Yeah, like his ability to take contact and score through it, I think consistently impresses me because like that's what makes people, I think, good scorers at the end of a game, which he has been by all accounts, one of their more efficient players at the end of games. And like, I just didn't think he had that in him at the beginning of the year, you know?
I was 2 games ago. I was shitting on his finish around the rim, which is actually pretty bad when he's not doing these floaters. Everything he hit a lot in traffic tonight, but they are all floaters. Like when he's trying to get at the rim, like finger roll and stuff, it's pretty ugly. All the same, if like he can keep doing this for quite a while and it'll be fine. And he did quite like. What's going on?
But
I was getting a lot of feedback there. Anyway, yeah, he finished a lot tonight, and it looked really nice. On Thad's point, do we think Thad has the best hands on the team?
you mean in terms of like rollers?
Like
Because
just
Siakam probably has better hands.
like he pokes so many balls. He has a lot of tap
Oh, you
ins.
mean
Like
like
he's just kind of like I mean Freddie probably has the best hands, I'd say, like for strips and stuff like that.
yeah,
But Thad's sneaky, always poking balls out.
yeah. He fits really well on the team too. I feel like you know, one of the biggest questions I've had all season, and I'm really curious to see it in the playoffs, is like, can the offensive rebounding keep up in a
Yeah.
playoff series? But Thad, it feels like a really consistent source of offense. Like Siakam draws two to the ball, shoots, puts it on the rim, and then like two bigs crash the boards. And then you're getting 2 points out of that more often than not. Like if Siakam's shot doesn't go down, one of those guys, and Thad fits that role so well of like screening, roll to the rim, get an offensive rebound. And like that's all he's doing in offense. When he does that, he's really, it's just a really good job for him.
Yeah, him
Um,
him and Scotty run the baseline really well too for like those dump offs.
mhm.
Um, the nice thing about Thad too is he's enabled Precious to play outside more comfortably. Which like he's or rather it's created space for him to play outside, which is good because I think like that's where Precious is like um able to exploit the advantage more, right? As opposed to being stuck down low. So with Thad, like with the Philly game, Thad guarded Embiid quite well. But then on the offensive end, he can kind of be that perimeter kind of like, or sorry, paint kind of like grinder and let Precious wander around. So he
Yeah.
does fit. He fits really well with those guys.
Are you up to date on this ethical stuff that's going around Twitter?
No idea. I saw it. I don't get it.
Someone just said like Pascal gets the most ethical 30 balls because of he doesn't get cheap fouls and all that stuff. And it's just caught on really well. Oh, here it is. I just think it's so funny. The way that people have run with it is so good. What's the unethical play of the night or the ethical play of the night? The
Un-
unethical
un-
play of the night was Utah just getting snatched by Jalen Green in the air, like on that
I,
dunk attempt. That
I was
was
gonna say
pretty unethical.
the unethical play I was gonna say um
Oh, it was
was
the rim. Oh, my bad. I thought
it what
Jalen Green like snatched it.
it looked like it, but yeah, it was the rim. I was gonna say Shingu not getting a foul call at the end there. That was
Yeah.
kind of unethical. But we
Well, it
deserved
was
it
ethical
after.
for the Raptors, but it was
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely agreed. Like I thought it could have went either way, but hey man, you're the Houston Rockets. Nobody respects you. So
Yeah.
these things happen.
Pascal didn't get much calls all night either. So
Yep. Yeah. Wow. Sorry, no, Pascal. How many free throws? You have 6. Okay. Yeah.
what what
Other than that,
on this doesn't really have anything to do with the game, but between I just watched the Philly game just before this game, so I'm
let's
like
talk about it. I have
I'm
way more to say about the Philly game.
but
Let me
but
tell you.
generally, do you think between these two games, Pascal and Scotty have proven their cases for the awards? I don't really care about the awards, although I do want Pascal to get notice. I don't really care about the Rookie of the Year award, but do you think these two games kind of like cemented that?
Yeah, I think Pascal has just like ever since the All NBA hype started, it always like there's always like a built narrative, and like Raptors fans will start that narrative after just a few games. Like they have no shame. But since it really started, he's just gotten better and better. So I think like for him, what he did against Philly with, so many Americans watching, I think it kind of did cement it just in terms of like if you're I don't know, if you're like an undecided voter, I think if it's coming down to him and Butler, like I'm not even being a homer, that's a ridiculous thing to put Butler ahead
100%.
of him. Like
Yeah.
based on what Siakam has operated with this season and carried these groups compared to like who Butler is playing with, it's not even a discussion. But yeah, I think Siakam probably has. Barnes, like not as much for me because I just think he's doing like the same stuff he's kind of been doing all season in terms of like cleaning up the garbage plays, fast break. Like I'm not seeing much different stuff from Barnes. I think it's just been a pretty steady season for him, which is like, yeah, that's like rookie of the year worthy if you can be that steady on such a winning team. It's a coin flip for me between him and Mobley, but Siakam should definitely be on a team.
Does the winning someone I think F's tweeted this question of like how much does the winning
Yeah.
matter?
I'm glad you asked. Okay, so I have a take on this.
Okay, hit it.
Like Cade should not be 1 or 2. If Cade
Right.
is 1 or 2 on your list, you're getting it wrong. That's my take because okay, it's not about playing on a winning team or a losing team. It's about like one of these teams is actually like getting up and getting a game plan together and focusing on winning basketball and like all that entails. And one of these teams is having fun and literally is like encouraged to lose games by their front office. So I just don't think that you can see what Cade is doing and say like, okay, on a night to night basis, he he you can't even compare what he is doing to what Evan and Scotty are doing because it's almost like different leagues. Like I understand that even the bad teams in the NBA are good, but at this point, especially late in the season, like it's so different how they are preparing for games versus how the Raptors are operating. So Cade leave off 1 or 2. That's how I feel. But the rest of that, like I don't think it should matter if the Raptors have 2 more wins than the Cavs,
No.
really. So
Me-
so it's just like I'm just talking about like a literal tanking team versus a team fighting for something.
The thing is that we don't do raw numbers in like the MVP race. Like we do like except for Russell Westbrook, there's really never been an MVP on a team that's like finished lower than I don't know 4th or 5th. I don't know, Jokic might have been like 5th, 4th or 5th last year, but we don't do that. So the Rookie of the Year, typically we don't factor in winning because they're usually on shitty teams, and then so we just kind of look at like who's played well for a rookie within the context. And so in a normal year, it probably would have been Cade. And Mobley and Barnes are in these like anomalous situations where they're both rookies, they're both on winning teams, and they're both in having an impact, like a crucial impact on the winning teams.
Mhm.
You don't really see that. I don't remember all the rookies and all the situations, but I'm sure it's not that common. So it does change the lens, and I think winning does matter more because they're playing when it matters and they're contributing at a high level. And at times, especially in Scotty's case, he is the go-to guy when they need him to be. So I think it does factor in this situation.
Yeah, it's like I get the argument that people make in terms of, well, it's never mattered for Rookie of the Year. Well, if you have two rookies who are playing for winning teams, why would you not like put them against each other rather than the rookies who are on losing teams? I just don't understand why you wouldn't. I don't really understand. It's just like I'm not doing a good job explaining my thoughts, I don't think, but to be on a winning team versus on a tanking team
I know what you mean.
is a completely just different way to approach the season.
This is also why awards generally are fucking stupid, because if you don't have an objective criteria, there's just like no really real way to like have a logical argument, because you think about like you could look at having good teammates, and you do, depending on whoever's arguing for whatever player, it depends. If you have good players on your team, it detracts from your case. If you have bad players on your team and your record's bad, it detracts from your case. So there's like there's never like a logical line running through these cases a lot of the time. And so and I think that's on the NBA to like give us like more of like some kind of categorical criterion at to, you know, like winning is X percentage of the award consideration, you know, or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know how that would work because that also sounds like it could get convoluted. But I just think no, I don't know. Like the way it is right now, at least, you just gotta pick your own. Like there's so many biases that factor in because, like you said, there's no strict criteria. You are gonna go with your own biases, but those biases have to at least you have to at least be able to make like a coherent argument for them, I think. And if your argument is like, well, Jimmy Butler is historically a greater player than Pascal Siakam, that's not a good argument because you're arguing about a yearly award.
They do the same thing with LeBron. Like all of a sudden he gets historical like recognition. In any other year, a guy who doesn't make the playoffs, even though he's leading and scoring, would not be an all NBA player.
LeBron's an interesting example in terms of what team he's going to land on, if he's even going to land on a team. I think he will, but there's definitely a case to be made that he shouldn't.
I wouldn't put him on mine. I think there's too many good players this year. Remember, going back to Jimmy Butler, he's played 56 games. He had 21. He has 21 points, 6 assists, 7 rebounds, and almost 2 steals a game. Siakam is 23 points, 5 assists, 9 rebounds, a steal, and half a block a game. So he's just like, and he's played 9 more games than Butler. There's no reason why Jimmy should get it over Siakam. There's no real argument.
I'm also curious
other than being the first seed, I guess.
What that Heat record is without Jimmy, because it's pretty good. And like that's my thing. It's like if you watch the two teams, the Raptors' depth like this season has been really bad.
Yeah.
And Siakam has just carried really bad groups. And when Butler sits, you got Kyle Lowry like running the show. And you got like Gabe Vincent and Max Strus and like really legitimate players. So whatever. Let's talk about this Philly game.
Wait, one sec. Chris, that tweet, can you bring that tweet back? That's quintessential like paradox of the NBA, right there. Like it just makes no sense. And I guess it also depends on like what other players are involved. But this year, it's not like someone, I think it was either Beck or no, it was Arnovitz on Zach Lowe's podcast. He said, I've ran out of forwards. I'm thinking about Domantas Sabonis. I'm like, you're fucking kidding me, dude. Like that's just I like Arnovitz a lot, but that is just such a bad take. There's a lot of depth this year, and also there's a lot of positional like tomfoolery that you can do to get guys where you need to get them.
Yeah, that's what I would do. If I had a vote, I would just do as much tomfoolery as possible in order to get my 15 best guys on the ballot. Like I would just, if they're going to let me put Embiid as a center or as a forward, I would for sure put him as a forward in my first team. Like that's how I would approach it.
If Giannis is a forward and Jokic is a forward, Durant is a guard, I would put him at the 2 and then give the 1 to like, I don't know, whoever you want to do. But that's how I would do it. I would have Durant, Giannis, Jokic, and Embiid as the top four because they're the four best players in the league. Period. There's no disputing it. The fact that they have to tier that because of some position, like because they have like traditional positions, even though they're bending it for Jokic, like it doesn't. Yeah, I don't know. It just really bugs me, all of this. But we're getting off topic, I suppose.
Yeah. Can we transition?
Sure.
Okay. I don't know if Chris can get this up for me in time for this transition, but you know who shouldn't make All NBA first team? Since you brought it up, if we could just scroll down to the video, this guy right here. Let me just show you who shouldn't make an All NBA team.
Mr. Harden. Dude,
this is in 1 minute left in the game. Okay.
Yeah.
He just blows the handle. Okay, I was at this game last night. I just have to rant
lucky
a little
man.
bit.
Go for it.
And I was like, you know, every game you're watching on TV or you're at, there's different levels to how much you're paying attention, obviously. But I was locked in because this is a potential playoff matchup, and I was specifically locked into like the Philly side of watching them on both sides of the floor. And Harden sucked so much.
So much.
Like it was shocking to me, and like if you told me he had like an injury that flared back up, that would make sense to me. But if he's healthy, because the shocking thing isn't just that like he lost a step and he can't blow by people. Like, sure, that's true, but plenty of times he blew by people that game. And as soon as he got into the paint, he was afraid and he either tossed up like a floater or he lost the handle like we saw there, or he threw it back out to the 3-point line. Like he was afraid to shoot or drive into the paint.
Dude,
and it just didn't make sense.
Just let me interject for one second.
Yeah.
He did the most Ben Simmons thing I've ever seen. He like basically had a wide open layup and lob passed it to the corner. And I think the guy hit the three. I think it might have been Danny or Maxi. But it like to me, it couldn't have been more ironic. Like he looked so unconfident taking a layup. So yeah. That play just really stood out to me.
There was also a play, I don't know if you'll remember it, but where he got a wide open corner three, passed it up, put it on the floor, and then shot like a 10-foot floater from like a 35-degree angle that just was a brick. And it was like not a good floater to take at all. So it's okay. Harden was so bad. I just can't legitimately like take him seriously. But like, okay, maybe he's saving something for the playoffs. Maybe he's a little injured and it'll heal up a little bit. I don't know. Probably not. But if he's going to play like that, they have no chance to make like any noise in the playoffs.
But then they'll lose to the Raptors if he plays like that.
For sure. And then even like outside of Harden, that team just kind of sucks considering there's 3 games left in the season. And like, you're considered a championship contender by all accounts. You went all in, traded 2 first-round picks, traded Simmons, made all these trades to get Harden and whatever. And considering that, I watch them and I think, okay, Embiid is amazing. Maxi's really good. Who else is like actually good on this team?
Let's kind of save that for playoff matchups.
I mean, but we might as well just talk about the Sixers right now.
Okay. Because Phoenix asks the same thing, which is that like they have it all alludes to the same thing, which is like there's nobody to go to. Tobias Harris' confidence has totally just died off. And you could feel it yesterday. Like he's just so hesitant. He doesn't want to shoot it. Mm-hmm. Back to the Harden thing. Bobby Marks was saying that the Nets were like, if you notice, he did it once in this game. He uses the ball to like push the defender off, and he did it once against the Raptors. And I think Brooklyn realized like he just doesn't have the explosiveness left, and he can't draw the fouls like he used to, and so like he's having trouble finishing and getting by guys, and it could be a total disaster. I don't think it's as simple as he's being deferential to Embiid. I think he's actually just struggling. And to your point, if he's being deferential, there's nobody left. Like Maxi is a great 3rd, 4th guy. I think Harris, I feel like 18 months ago, Harris might have been a perfect third guy to these two, but he just does not seem like the same guy anymore. And then on the
No,
defensive end, like we can wear Harris down to the point that I think he just like is kind of burnt.
yeah. So starting with like Maxey, I even think is overrated because I remember when they made the trade for Harden, and Maxey was shooting like 50% from three in like 4 games, and just playing like doing what he does really well, which is like attack second side actions and a shifted defense really well. But the takes coming out of Philly at that point were insane to me because I was like, listen, this is a 4-game sample size of a 20-year-old, right? Like, pump the brakes on asking him to be this in the playoffs. And that's basically what they're asking. Like, he's the third guy because Tobias is, you literally don't feel Tobias a 48-minute game goes by. I watching that game did not feel Tobias's impact once.
It,
Yeah.
Yeah, it felt, you know what it felt to me is very Kevin Lovian with the Cavs. Like he's just he doesn't really know how to fit in this offense. There's so much usage between Embiid and Harden in the spaces that like Harris is a mid-range guy. Like that's his game. Now there's no space for him to do that. And I think he's just kind of like really uncomfortable with where he's at. And yeah, they don't really have any wing players because Tybal's so unplayable offensively, and he doesn't really affect like Tybal doesn't really affect us the same way he affects other guards, I think, defensively. And so like he's almost going to be rendered less consequential in a series against him. And then they just don't have anybody else left. Like Green's not going to get hot like he did last night.
No, don't believe in that at all.
No.
Yeah. Tybal, I think it hurts them for sure, but like I was hoping for this matchup anyways in the playoffs because Tybal, I think the Raptors would have just played off the floor by like the fourth game.
That's what I mean.
Like they're gonna leave him completely open. He's afraid to shoot, and he can't shoot even when he does. So eventually, I think Philly was gonna have to pull him anyways. So like I don't think, or at least like play small minutes. So I don't think he was going to like affect the series that much, but it's true. You do see that when he's out of the lineup, they have so little defense. And like, I think the Raptors are really a bad matchup for them for a lot of reasons. Like offensively, if you tell me, okay, James Harden looks better against other teams, that might be true. And it might just be a Raptors thing because he does like to slow the game down, as someone mentioned in the comments. He likes to dribble until he sees the defender turn his head the wrong way. And then, bam, he fires a pass into the a shooter's pocket. Like, that's how a lot of Harden's offense comes. And playing against the Raptors, I think, A, they either don't do that, or B, they're just big enough to recover to where they can miss a second and still get out and contest the shot. And, like, he's a guy who likes to get a switch and then size someone up. And he was just doing it to the wrong people. Like, Precious is not the guy to target and then try to hit a step back three over. But yeah, like
he didn't take a single step back last night, I don't think. Like that
he took
that
a
part
couple.
of his,
One was an air ball.
like that part of his game seems to be like diminished because that part, like that ability to spread the floor so much is what made him so threatening on the drive, right? Like, or what would make up for any lack of explosiveness he had. But that didn't really seem to be there yesterday. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, overall, Philly's thing is just like Embiid is amazing, but when you look at the defense outside of Embiid, especially, it's just like even in the fourth quarter, they put Embiid on Siakam, and like that is not what you want to do with Embiid. Embiid is not a wing stopper. You know what I mean? Like Embiid is not the guy you want to bring out to the perimeter, guard Siakam, and then all of a sudden no one's in the paint. And that, like, over the course of a series, that could really get exposed. And yet, who else are they going to put on Siakam? Especially with Tybal out. It's like Danny Green is not holding Siakam. You know, I don't know who else comes to mind. You know, Harris isn't doing it. And then they also don't have a backup center. So they're playing these tiny lineups against the Raptors. They just killed them on the board.
Paul Reed played well.
he was okay, but is he even their backup center in their playoffs? Like Paul Reed just started playing a couple of days ago, so
yeah, I don't know, but fuck out of thought. Oh, you know what Philly's problem is? They don't have any dogs. You know, like they don't have any guys that like Tybal doesn't even seem like that ferocious, you know? He just kind of seems like he goes out there and does his thing. I like Tybal. I'm not like wholly knocking him. I think I'm knocking him more because I just hate that he gets more love than OG. But
I think Embiid is their dog. But
he kind of like he gets a little overwhelmed at times. Like last night, he didn't take over the game. He wasn't dominant.
I
He
don't
is
think that
like
was his fault, though. I think he gets frustrated with the Raptors. They make it so that the team has to beat them. They're
if
not going to
you're
let Embiid win.
if you're a superstar, it doesn't matter. Like Jokic it doesn't matter how many guys you threw at you. And I know he's a passing savant, but if Embiid's Giannis is the same thing. I don't feel like you could overwhelm Giannis in the same way we do Embiid. And I know their games are stylistically different, but Giannis and Jokic are both like, I don't give a fuck. And I don't get that same feeling from either Embiid or Harden. And that's why I wanted to, like, even before this game, I wanted to play Philly because I feel like psychologically they don't have that edge. They needed Lowry last year. That was why they should have grabbed Lowry when they could have, is because he was the dog they needed.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think you're right in terms of offensively, Embiid is probably not on the level of those two guys. Defensively, it might make up for it because of how good he is on both ends. But yeah, he doesn't manipulate the game in the same way that Jokic does or Giannis does, I don't think. But I have a hard time like discrediting him because I think the roster must be so frustrating for him. Like the lack of shooting, the lack of wing defenders, the lack of ball handlers, the lack of a backup center. It's just like you're asking this guy to do way too much, I think. And then this comment I'm glad someone brought up because I actually wrote about this. It'll be up tomorrow on Yahoo. Like the free throw thing is really interesting for the Raptors, especially if it's a Philly series. Because like Philly is so dependent. They're the number one free throw like percentage of free throws of their offense free throws in the league. Embiid and Harden combined for 21 a game. And it's like, if you watch that Raptors game, ton of those fouls that they got were soft, grifty fouls. Like Embiid ripping through, Embiid pump fake, jumping into the shooter. Those will not get called. Even if you're a superstar, those are not getting called in the playoffs. So, like I was looking at the numbers, Harden and Embiid, both of their free throw numbers have gone down pretty much every playoffs. The amount of shots they take, which they get fouled on, have gone down. Whereas the Raptors really don't rely on free throws. Like Siakam is their highest guy. He's up 5.5 a game. But like not even being a homer, when Siakam gets to the line, he's getting hit. Like it's a legitimate like foul. It's not like a touch foul.
It's an ethical attack.
Yeah, he's just an ethical 30 baller. And that's where we're at. So I think the free throw thing could be really interesting if those two teams played.
To be clear, I'm not knocking Embiid like as a player or anything. Like he's kind of like Patrick Ewing-y a little bit. It's just like they're super players. They're really talented, but there's just like this kind of like grittiness that they're kind of lacking. And maybe you're right. Maybe it's just because he's big and he has less, like he's restricted to the post a little bit more like a traditional big, and that kind of hinders your impact on the game.
Yeah. He has such a back to the basket game, so that probably makes it a little easier to defend him, I think, than a Jokic or Giannis.
Yeah.
Because when you send so many bodies at a back to the basket player, it might just be easier.
Yeah. I think you're right.
Yeah, I'm curious what's Philly on defensive rebounding percentage, because I know they're not a good defensive rebounding team, and that was another thing we saw last night. Was that other than Embiid, again, they don't have big bodies that can crash the boards. And you can't ask Embiid to do everything.
That was one of their major losses of Ben Simmons.
Right. So 13th. Okay.
That's not terrible. I mean, they got DeAndre Jordan, so they filled that hole.
Yeah, so what I said after the game yesterday was that I'm ready to lose some money on a series. Like, I'm there.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm
Yeah,
ready to put it on the Raptors. I
totally.
legitimately am.
Th-
I
This
think
is kind of
I
go
know
ahead.
this sounds crazy, but like if you take Tybal out of the equation, I think they're a better team. Just straight up. They're a better team. And then there's also the Doc versus Nurse thing, which is like that's a huge advantage.
Yeah, it's really like becoming a stark difference. You know what's interesting? Generally, I was thinking this. I have two thoughts. One is quickly that the Raptors are actually much like the whole year we were whining about their depth, and all of a sudden they're like kind of deep. Especially if Flynn like really gets his legs back and his confidence. Like he played fine defense against Trey and Harden in limited minutes. I don't think he's going to play much in the playoffs, but it's just kind of funny that like our depth is actually kind of legit now. Like we have a real 8, and then you could throw in Flynn, you could throw in Yuta, like whatever. It's just kind of funny. Whereas you look at Philly, they're not like deep at all. Then neither really are the Nets. And this is my other point is that this is a really interesting philosophical like change in the NBA. Look at the Nets, look at the Sixers, look at the Lakers. They all went for this like what 5 years ago was the common thing to do, which was to take 2 or 3 superstars and like doesn't matter about positional fit, doesn't matter about anything else. And none of those guys have wing players. Like they or sorry, none of those teams have wing players. And it's like really shown this year like that if you don't build your team for the modern NBA and you just rely on superstardom, albeit they're like older, but like you're going to be in trouble. And so it like really makes Masai look even all the more genius, like in contrast.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was also saying last night if the Raptors did win a playoff series against Philly in the first round, Morey just got to be out of the league. Like that's inexcusable. And I'm not even like joking. Like you like it that to me would prove just how important the intangibles are. Like
Yeah,
you can say all you want about numbers and you got the guy you wanted, you thirsted after. And then this team full of like undrafted scrappy players beat you. Like doesn't that tell you something about how it's more than just the numbers? I don't
totally.
know.
I mean I've always been on board. I said from day one I would not do the Harden trade because not because like it it just didn't seem like he was at top form, and you couldn't trust him. Like, who was to say he wasn't going to get disgruntled in Philly like immediately? And
Yeah.
now, Oren, do you re-sign James Harden?
No,
Like,
yeah, we were talking about this in the game too. It's like someone was like, I was like, wow, Harden looks like bad, and they're like, yeah, and that's a guy they're about to pay 5 years, 100 whatever million to, and I was like, are they though? Like they're seeing the same thing we're seeing.
yeah, but your ego. Think of the ego. Like, you just traded however many first rounders
Yeah,
and Ben Simmons. You said no to all of these trades, and here you are, and you're just going to swallow it. Like, there's no goddamn way these egotistical guys are going to just confess that they effed up, you
yeah.
know?
The sad thing is, I loved Harden. Harden was one of my favorite players in Houston. Like whenever people talked about like how his game was boring and the step back threes, like I never agreed with that. I like the way he plays. I think he's like a dancer, like when he's at his best. And he manipulates the game in a lot of ways that people don't like, but like within the rule book, to me, whatever goes, goes. I loved Harden, but the way that he's handled this latter part of his career is like
Awful.
so gross that I'm just out. Like I'm just so out.
See, I like if you put Harden in like a snow globe and you just watched him do all of his do-si doing, it's beautiful. But when you put it in the context of a basketball game, it absolutely fucking ruins the joy of a game. Like I want to see team basketball. I think teams are best when they're doing team basketball. That's a good line. And Harden just completely destroys that, and so it's not beautiful to watch when it's in the context of a game, in my opinion. But
Yeah, and I know like there's like it's reasonable to say like I'm crazy for saying the Raptors. Like okay, I wasn't saying it's a sweep. I'll give them 6 games. I'll give them 6 games. But like if you take all of the historical context out of this and you just focus on like whatever the last like half of the season, like who has been better, this group of players or that group of players? You know, it's like, well, Pascal has been like a first team worthy guy over the past 20 games. Fred is an all-star. Gary's playing better. OG has been consistent when he's been playing. Scotty's been better. And then like those other five, you just can't say that they're trending in a good direction.
Sorry, I just wanted to
So
highlight this.
yeah.
I agree with this, except that I want Precious there, not Gary.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about like what you said about depth, it's gonna like depend on what these young guys actually do in the playoffs, because so many of these guys we've talked about have never been there.
True.
So I'm not confident that like all of them are gonna even play. Like my guess would be like one of Precious, Boucher, Gary, I guess those are the main guys. Like Malachi, like one of those guys is just not going to be able to do what they're doing now in a playoff setting, I think.
Yeah, and I've had that thought about Scotty too.
Scotty, I don't feel that way. I'm confident.
I'm just saying I've had the thought. I'm not
Yeah.
saying
He's
like,
gonna have mistakes for
yeah.
sure.
Or
like
just
like
like
Scotty, I could see blowing in coverage at the end of game one, and it's like fuck Scotty.
or not getting those like 8-foot leaner, like highly contested things to drop. You know, it just like defenses will just be. I mean, I guess yesterday was basically a playoff game. So I could be wrong. Like he is just so overpowering. It's insane. But I just feel like when defense is really tightened, like when he runs into Miami Heat in the second round, like some of that shit's not going to fly. PJ Tucker's just going to like nut punch him, and then it's, you know, so.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. But yeah, like regardless of the depth, looking at these like starting fives, I do think the Raptors have a real case. Before we go though, let's talk about like let's rank like our other three.
Let's do Taxman of the night.
Okay, go for it.
Can-Am Tax.com, our great, wonderful sponsor, VJ Verma. This is the 81st time we've talked about VJ Verma. Our reliable sponsor. Taxes, I still haven't done them. I'll probably not do them until June, so I can just keep running this ad and say, I mean, if you don't owe money, you don't. It doesn't matter when you fill them out. Just saying. But for those of you who do owe money, you should go visit canamtax.com. Tell them that Zarar sent you. I'm sure VJ would be happy to help you out. They help small businesses. They help the individual. Don't go to H&R Block. Oren, who is your Can-Am Tax player of the night?
Can-Am Tax. Well, I mean, obviously Siakam was the best player. I'll give it to Gary, actually. I was thinking about Thad. Thad gets a special shout out, but Gary played really well. He had a big steal late in the game, and then he had the bucket to win it at the end. And it's huge that he's kind of playing well, because like he was really off for a while there. And last few games,
putting it lightly.
Yeah, that is putting it lightly. Last few games he's been back. I agree with you that I could totally see a playoff series where by game 3 they starting Precious over him. Like, wouldn't surprise me. But he, as long as he's shooting the 3 ball, he's going to be very valuable to this team. So
yeah, I'm actually thinking they're going to close without him. But I mean, it will depend on matchups. He's 10 for 16 from 3 in the last 2 games. Prior to that, he was 7 for 22 in the 3 before that. So who the hell knows what Gary we're going to get. But I will say, and we had a Norm versus Gary debate, Kyle and I, 3 nights ago. And the reason why he landed on Norm, I think I landed on Gary. And one of the reasons is his swagger. Like, you know, talking about not having a dog in Philly, like Gary, among many others on this team, is just going to have that edge, regardless of whether he's 0 for 14,000 or he's hot, you know? So, and you need that kind of guy in the playoffs. It can sewer you. Like if he doesn't get out of that cold streak, where we could be totally fucked. But all the same, you know, he's going to gonna just have that edge.
No, yeah, I like that about him as well. But yeah, before we go though, I want to do like ranking because we both agree that the Sixers would be our number one option. But then in terms of maybe the Sixers, don't get the 4 seed and someone else does, or even potentially a second. Yes.
Wow.
Okay, well then we will not talk about Milwaukee. I mean,
Well, you could say who you'd prefer, but
oh, well then I guess it's just down to Philly or Boston. Yeah, well, I would have preferred Boston anyways, especially with these reports that Al Horford and Jaylen Brown wouldn't be able to play in Toronto. But
are we sure it's
Boston,
those guys? That's
no.
just the
That's what Chris Mannix reported, like legitimate person, but it's not confirmed by any means. But Boston scares me from the bubble. Like, even though a lot was different back then, a lot is still the same. Their defense, it's kind of similar to the Toronto's in a lot of ways, where like their ball denial and like their pressure is really, really good. And it kind of screws with the Raptors and how they get into sets. I think the similar way that Toronto does that. So Boston still scares me as a matchup. But like, okay, with those two not playing 3 games, like then I would pick Toronto. But healthy, like Boston is a pretty scary matchup.
Yeah. Pascal's one weakness, I think, is basically any guy, obviously, who's quick enough to kind of like get into his hips and like not allow him to use like his spin moves or his leverage. And I feel like Boston has multiple guys that they can kind of throw at Siakam to disrupt him. Like even Marcus Smart, I feel like would be pretty difficult for Pascal. I don't know who has traditionally guarded Pascal from Boston.
Jaylen Brown did it primarily in the last series, but they switch everything. It's similar to Toronto too, and that screws you up too. Like when a team switches everything, it hurts so many of your like pet plays.
Yeah. I mean, to my point earlier, like this is a league of wings, and like Boston has 2 of the best. And I think Smart's really settled into his role as floor general, and that's scary. And I think we have a lot of advantages over Boston, especially without Time Lord, namely our size at the front. Like I don't think Horford and I know Horford and Tice can't handle our athleticism. And so in that sense, like offensive rebounding would be much more of an advantage, I think, than potentially like Milwaukee, for example. So yeah, I do not want to play Milwaukee. They seem like kind of laser locked.
Oh, for sure. But on Boston, a couple other things is the way the Raptors play obviously is like they want to take the ball out of superstars' hands. But you look at who Boston is passing it to, and that's kind of why they lost in 2020 was the Raptors were not afraid of letting Marcus Smart shoot, and he lit them up from 3. And this team, it's similar. It's like, okay, if I'm going to double Jason Tatum, he's either passing it to Smart or he's passing it to like Peyton Pritchard, who's a really good shooter, or he's passing it to Grant Williams, who's a really good shooter. Like their role players are all really good shooters.
Horford can hit.
Yeah, so I think that's another thing. But to be fair to Siakam, he's like figured them out in a lot of ways. Like hit him on the season, 22 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals a game, 50% shooting in 3 games. So like he's played really well against them this season. And I think he's improved in a lot of ways that like it doesn't really matter who's guarding him in a lot of respects anymore. But in terms of the mismatch hunting that the Raptors like to do, like you're not getting much of an advantage on Marcus Smart or Derek White.
No.
So.
God damn it. Fun hot girls and boys.
Come on, not right now. After the show, maybe, but
yeah.
No.
Oh shit.
Oh, now it's
Oh no, God.
Okay, good job. I think yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
No, I didn't have anything to say. I disagree with you.
My brother was saying something hilarious, which is that like the Raptors have this vaccine aided path to a conference finals that's like very legitimate. Like take this in, and we could maybe leave on this. So you play Philly in the first round, Tybal's out, you beat them. Second round, say the Nets beat the Heat.
Kyrie.
All right. Now we're playing the Nets with no Kyrie in 4 of the games. That's a win. Like, honestly, that team is not deep enough to withstand no Kyrie in 4 games.
Talk about hunting switches.
And then potentially, in this world I'm making up, Boston beats Milwaukee. You play Boston, no whatever, Horford and Jaylen Brown. And if you want to go really far in the conference finals, it's just hilarious that.
Who in the Western Conference do we think's not vaccinated?
Great question. Great question. I guess we're gonna have to wait till the NBA finals to find out.
I bet sneaky DeAndre Ayton's probably,
That's not bad.
Yeah. And although I think Chris Paul probably actually put the vaccine in himself. Oops.
Yeah, like when he was sleeping. Maybe not yet, but if he sees like 2 weeks out, Toronto's still in it, he'll do it. He's not afraid to do it.
We should probably leave because my dog's barking at something.
All right. Yeah, that was plenty. That was plenty.
You lead us out, Oren.
All right. Well, thanks for. Can you put that little thing that Zarar made for us, making people like, comment, and subscribe? I'm not sure how to do that, but thank you all the listeners for watching. This has been the wrap up. We appreciate the 200 of you who stuck with us for 50 minutes. And we are here every game, after every Raptors game. We will be here after every playoff game, in case you are just finding out about us. So subscribe and like the video. We'll be back on Sunday night when the Raptors take on the New York Knicks in their final regular season game. We made it. We made it to the end. It's been a grind, but
are we starting our starting 5? Is Freddie playing 37 minutes?
Well, I feel like OG is gonna get a lot of reps. But yeah, I don't know if like Pascal and Gary will play. Who knows?
No.
Like in all okay, never mind. Well, thanks for joining, everyone. Like, comment, and subscribe. We'll be back then, and we'll see you. All right. Good night.